think we're just about ready to go. So let's see, that's off, that's off, that's off, that's on. The stream appears to be live. I think we're good to go. Hello, Shadowcat back! And it's an exciting day because we're finally done. Oh my god, we're finally done with this. I had no idea how many of these things there were when I started this module. I had no idea what we were going to have to be doing, and I had no idea it would take this long. But it's done. Kinda, sorta. There is still technically the actual keywords for the game that we have to do. We have to establish things like what does tap mean, and like what is a graveyard and stuff like that, which we probably should have done first, but we didn't. But that's probably going to make it a lot easier when we do go through those. However, I don't think we're doing that first. Now that we're done with these keywords, I think we're going to take a break and do something else, like maybe the creature module first. Just for something different. Although that's going to come with a whole bunch of other... It's going to be a lot. Okay, it's going to be a lot. So, for right now, though, we're just going to get back into this and we're going to finish it up. And we've only got, like, I don't know, a dozen things left to do. So, I'm hoping that it might not even take all that long and maybe we can start looking at creatures. We'll find out when we get there. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead, we're going to get into this. Before I do that, though, I'm going to go ahead and say hello to everyone in chat. So JP, hello, good to see you. I don't know why I'm waving at the screen because you can't see that. Blizz, good to see you too. Again, don't know why I'm waving at the screen. You can't see that, but I'm doing it anyway. So, we're going to need, of course, our spreadsheet and our browser. And if you look at the spreadsheet, you can see the end. We've never been able to see the end before. We can see the end of it. It's actually happening. And there's a little bit of a gap in there. Let me see if I can fix that. You should like snap into place, shouldn't you? No, that didn't quite work. Okay, maybe I just gotta like resize the windows. Let's try this. Let's go ahead and maximize you. Does that fix it? No. Alright, how about the how about this? Let's go ahead and shrink it and then maximize it again. Does that fix it? No, it does not. Okay, can I like move this one up then? Can I do anything to get rid of that little stripe in the middle? There, stripe is gone. I'm gonna go nuts over that. Okay, first crisis averted. Not much of a crisis, but a crisis all the same. Alright, so we're going to get back into the module now. Finally. Yes, let's do it. So, we're going to have to start with Toxic. Wait a minute, I think I don't like this one. Mostly because I hate it being used against me. Okay, let's take a look. Toxic, because we just did for Mirrodin. Okay, so Toxic is a static keyword ability that allows the use of multiple poison counters. Yeah, I kind of figured I didn't like this one. It was introduced in Phyrexia All Will Be One as a reworking of Poisonous. Niche-wise, it was also a replacement for the Infect mechanic in Scars of Mirrodin. So, let's take a look. So, Toxic is Toxic N. Players deal combat damage to this creature. Also get N poison counters. So it deals damage and inflicts poison. Wonderful. Actually, this should not be that difficult, since this is a reworking of both Infect and Poison. I think we can go back and simply reference what we were doing before. And with poison, we were literally just inflicting poison. It was a contact poison. Where was it? Because I know it was up here somewhere. Oh yeah, we also have to come back here and finish up a few of these. We got to do Intimidate, Shroud, Banding. Which, I mean, they shouldn't be that hard. I did forget it about them. Okay, but I need poison. Where was that? Storm, Sunburst, Dredge, Delve. I know it was in here somewhere. I know we did it. Okay. We'll have to do it this way. Poison. Really? Nothing? Am I looking at the wrong thing? Is a reworking of Poisonous. Should have popped up on just... Oh, no, it did pop up on Poisonous. Okay. Good. There it is. Okay, so Poisonous. It's an injury poison. The Fortitude DC is 10 plus the poison amount. The frequency equals the mana cost. And it is a 1d poison amount of HP damage. You know, for however long the frequency is. And I think that we can just copy this, because it should be applicable down here as well. Now, where was Infect? Infect is further down. Did I simply copy and paste for Infect, or was there more to it? There's Ingest. Where was Infect? There it is. Okay, so Infect. This creature does not deal damage. Instead, on a successful attack, the target takes a -1 strength, -2 constitution penalty for each power. Then the target must save versus poison. The Fortitude DC is 10 plus power frequency is 1 turn per mana cost, and then, yeah, okay, so the difference between poison and infect is poison is literally just a poison. Infect does actually give it the -1 strength, -1 constitution. The toxic here, however, is different, because it says that players deal combat damage to this creature, or dealt creature by this combat, or also gain end poison counters, meaning that, if I understand the rules correctly, they're going to take damage, and they're going to get the counters. However, they're not -1/-1 counters, as far as I know. Let's see. Number of poison counters equal to the toxic value. So if a creature's toxic value and its power are independent and are not connected, unlike Infect, if a creature with 6 toxic deals 1 combat damage to an opponent, they still get 6 poison counters. The counters are handed out in addition to the damage being dealt. It has no effect on the creature, or if the creature deals combat damage to another creature or planeswalker. Instead of giving poison counters a triggered ability like Poison, it acts more like Lifelink, adding the counters instantaneously. For most matters of digital play, instead of redefining Poisonous, R&D preferred a new name, as Poisonous means poison if you eat it, and not poisons you if it bites you. Technically, that would be venomous. I mean, toxic just means kind of like bad for you, in general. Because, like, actually, no, that's kind of hard. What is the difference between toxic and poisonous? I don't know. I'm curious now. Let's take a look. I'm going to just use my phone for this one. Poison versus toxin. So, let's see. I do not want the AI overview. I don't trust the AI overview. But this is from the Science Learning Hub. Poisons are substances that cause harm to organisms when sufficient quantities are absorbed, inhaled, or ingested. A toxin is a poisonous substance produced within living cells or organisms. Interesting. So toxin is kind of like an umbrella term. Poisons are toxins, venoms are toxins. They're defined then afterwards by how they're delivered. Alright, so that's kind of interesting. Doesn't necessarily seem to fit here, but sure. I guess technically it should be venomous still. Let's see. And I suppose that makes sense with the dealing damage and granting counters. So the example they have here is the venerated Rot Priest, and there's a preview error. What happens if I refresh? Nope, still a preview error. Okay, well, what does it say? Toxin 1, whenever the creature you control becomes the target of a spell, they get a poison counter. Wonderful. Okay, now the poison counters I don't think actually do anything. Let me take a look here. It's a counter that, unlike most counters, is placed on players rather than objects. If a player has 10 more poison counters, yes. Yeah, so since poisonous also gives counters, and we already made that into an actual poison, I do believe that we can just do the same thing here. So here's what we're going to do. For toxic, we are going to go ahead and say when this creature deals damage, how do I want to phrase this? Actually, I think I know how I want to phrase this, because there are creatures that are venomous, and I think that's what I want to do. Let's look at how that's worded. Also, that is like an enormous list there. Close that list. Okay, bestiary. I want... Oh, this is actually going to be really easy. And close that list. I want by type, and I want vermin. Because it's one of my favorite animals. We're going to pick the scorpion. Specifically, we'll take a green sting scorpion. Alright. So, a green sting scorpion, it's just a little scorpion. It's a regular old scorpion, okay? Tiny little vermin. They're great for pets, especially if you're a rogue. Because you can totally use them to envenom your weapons. Ask me how I know. Okay, so it has a sting, injury, the fortitude save, everything else on this. I think that's really all I need. Quite frankly, if that's all it's going to do, is I think that I can just paste. It's literally going to be the same as poisonous. Now, it's a little bit weird because, again, by definition, something is poisonous if it hurts you when you hurt it. But either way, this is really all we need. It'll still do its normal damage. I could, just at the very beginning here, I could just say on successful, well, no, not on successful attack, on damage, but not just on any damage, on dealing damage. Injury, poison, fortitude, DC, all of that. And perhaps I should update poison up there as well to match that. But I'm not going to do that right now. Toxic is done. We can call that one done. Okay, next is backup. So backup is a keyword ability introduced in March of the Machine. It's on a whole 25 cards. I heard people didn't really like March of the Machine. I don't know why, though. I never had it. So, backup N. When this creature enters, put N/1/1 counters on the creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following abilities until end of turn. Okay, I need to see their example, and hopefully it actually works this time. Preview error. No, apparently nothing is going to work this time. I thought maybe it was just that one card, but no, I guess not. Well, that's okay. We'll survive this. So, the Boonbringer Valkyrie, it's a 4/4 Angel Warrior. It costs 3+2 white to play. It has backup 1. So when it enters the battlefield, put a counter on another creature, or on target creature. If it's another creature, it gains the following abilities until end of turn, that being Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink. However, I do believe that the Boonbringer Valkyrie has these by default. So it would just be temporarily granting them to somebody else. And then you would have 2 creatures with Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink. So there you go. This doesn't need to change much. But it does need to change a little bit. It does need to change a little bit. So I'm going to copy this up here. And we're going to paste it in. We'll make it readable, of course. And when this creature enters, put N/1/1 counters on target creature. That's what we need to change. So we're going to first make this +1 strength and +1 constitution. We're going to change put to grant. Or maybe we don't even need to be grant. We need to say give. So give N, which is whatever the number is, 1 strength and 1 constitution, counter bonuses to the target creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following abilities until end of turn. And so that's fine. This meaning that if the angel were to come onto the field, and I already had something like, say, a just basic 1/1 white soldier token, because this is a white angel, then since it's back up 1, it would become a 2/2 white soldier token with Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink, and then they can attack together. So I think that works out really well. Now, the abilities will end at the end of turn. The 1/1 counter will stay. So even after it gets those abilities, it'll still be a 2/2 white soldier token, or creature, or whatever. Okay, good enough for me. Good enough for me. What's next? Next up is bargain. And what does bargain do? So bargain is a keyword introduced in the wilds of Eldraine? Eldraine? Probably just Eldraine. That allows you to sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast a spell for an additional effect. I've never even heard of this set. Let's see. Bargain. You may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell. It only appeared on 22 cards. But let's take a look. So Bargain is a variant of Kicker with the fairy tale flavor. It has been, or a spell that has been bargained if its controller declared the intention to play any or all of the bargain costs. Like Kicker, it uses an additional cost to enable a linked ability, so the actual effect is completely open-ended. And there may be more, I guess. So let's take a look. Let's see. They mentioned the Lich Knight's Conquest and Malevolent Witch Kite. Do have multi-kicker equivalent to bargaining. The Devouring Sugar Maw asks for a bargain every upkeep. Alright, but let's take a look. Their example is Touch of the Tower, and I can't preview it, unfortunately. But it says this. It costs 1 to play, it's an instant, and it has Bargain. You may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast a spell. Touch of the Tower deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If the spell was bargained, instead it deals 3, and you scry 1. If a permanent dealt damage by the Touch of the Tower would die this turn, exile it instead. Okay, so I don't necessarily see anything that needs to change here. You may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell. That's it. And then, as we see here, it specifies on the card itself if it was bargained. Instead, it does whatever. So the actual rule itself is very simple, and we can just basically copy this one wholesale. There's nothing in this wording that needs to change. Lovely. Okay. Moving on to craft. Crafting rules. Let's hope I don't actually have to make crafting rules for this. That would take an hour. Alright. Craft is an ability word introduced in the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Haven't heard of that one either. But let's take a look. Craft. So with X cost, exile this artifact. If you exile it, you control... Wow, it's kind of hard to read this one piecemeal broken up like this. Exile this artifact, exile whatever you control or a whatever card from your graveyard. Return this card transformed under its owner's control. Craft only as a sorcery. Okay. This one's going to be complicated, isn't it? Craft is a new way to transform artifacts by paying a mana cost and exiling permanents you control from the battlefield and or your graveyard. Artifacts can transform into more powerful permanents. Out of all craft permanents, only 3 do not transform into artifacts, that being the Dread Osiosaur, the Wretched Bone Mass, and the Grim Captain. This is on 24 cards, by the way. I guess they thought this was going to be popular. As with previous transforming double-faced cards, you can always cast the front face of these cards, that's the face with the craft ability, and they always enter with that face up unless something specifically says they enter transformed such as a craft ability. To activate the craft ability, you need to do 3 things. Exile the permanent with craft, exile the specified materials, and pay mana. The materials are other permanents you control and or cards from your graveyard. Yeah, I think I get the idea. This is gonna be rough. Spring-loaded saw blades. Preview error. Don't care. Clicking on it. I want to see this. And I can't scroll up far enough to actually show the whole image. But it's here, it costs 1 plus white, and it looks like saw blades, go figure. Okay, so it says flash, which means that it can come out as an instant. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target tapped creature and opponent controls. Now see, that's where we have to get into all those other keywords, because what does tapped mean? And I don't necessarily know what that means yet. So craft with an artifact. So it does specify an artifact. You must exile that artifact, exile another artifact you control, and then pay 3 plus white. When you do, return this card transformed under its owner's control, craft only as a sorcery. So we have to hit this transform. That flips the card over to the Blade Wheel Chariot. And the Blade Wheel Chariot says simply this: tap 2 other untapped artifacts you control. It becomes an artifact creature until end of turn with crew 1. Tap any number of creatures you control with total power 1 or more. It becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Well, that kind of makes sense. Now, I wonder if you have to do those separately. Does that mean that you have to tap 2 creatures to turn it into an artifact creature? Because normally the crew 1 would do that. Or these choices. Oh no, wait, hold on. I misread that. Tap 2 other untapped artifacts you control and it becomes an artifact creature, or crew 1, tap the creatures you control and they can crew it. Gotcha. So there's 2 ways to turn it into a creature that can attack. And it is a 5/5 creature. Okay, so this is complicated, but not overly so. The generic text up here is a little bit more complicated, but I understand it now. And honestly, now that I understand it, there's not really anything that has to change. The only problem that I see is the from your graveyard part. I'm going to copy that for now, but when I come down here and I see, let's see, permanents, non-lands, caves, nothing here says immediately graveyard. Unless maybe this one. Let's take a look at this one, the Paleontologist Pickaxe. So, here we go. Whenever equipped creature attacks, draw a card, and then discard a card. It costs 1 to equip. It's just, it's a pickaxe. Craft with 1 or more creatures. Exile this artifact, exile 1 or more creatures you control and or cards from your, or creature cards from your graveyard. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be from your graveyard, but it could be. Or in this case, I suppose, dead creatures. Return this card transformed under its owner's control, yes. And then it becomes the dinosaur headdress. Which, when the dinosaur headdress comes in, attach it to any creature. As the dinosaur headdress becomes attached to a creature, choose an exile creature card used to craft the dinosaur headdress. Equipped creature is a copy of the last chosen card. Wow, that could be abused. Okay, so here we're gonna copy this in, but we may have to make some adjustments. So default formatting, and then we'll format it to make it readable. So with X cost, exile this artifact, exile whatever it is you control, or a card from your graveyard. However, this needs to change, because we don't really have a graveyard, essentially. So instead of a card from your graveyard, we're simply going to say... And we know this is going to be essentially... Oh, God, because it might not be a card or a creature on some of these. I have no idea how I'm going to work this at the moment. I think this is one of those things that might have to wait until we actually sit down and define graveyard, which is something we'll have to do in the next set of keywords. Because graveyard can mean a lot of things. We've already established that graveyard is absolutely going to mean any of your spells per day that you've already used. So if you have a spell that, say, puts something from your graveyard back into your deck, it's essentially giving you back a spell per day. However, dead creatures also go in the graveyard. Destroyed artifacts also go in the graveyard. Disenchanted enchantments go in the graveyard. Meaning that the graveyard is just so much more complex than saying, oh, any dead creatures that you control can be used to craft something. I'm going to leave this as is for right now, just because I think once we go through and handle graveyard itself, this problem will disappear. Again, we did this in the wrong order. Maybe I should have stopped and gone back to do the other keywords first. I don't know. We're pushing through, though. I'm going to go down to disguise. I think craft is going to be okay. Okay, so, disguise. A keyword introduced at the Murders of Karlov Manor. What are we playing, Clue now? It's the Raging Goblin in the kitchen with a nightstick. Wait, did Clue have a nightstick? I guess Candlestick. But Candlestick... Is it Candlestick? Now I don't know. Now I don't remember. I haven't played Clue since I was like single digits old. Okay, anyway. So you can pay 3 to cast a card with the ability face down as a 2/2 colorless typeless creature with ward. Okay, so it's basically just morph, but with ward. It literally says that. Disguise is an upgraded variant of morph, which was considered a bit too weak for the contemporary standard environment. I got news for you. It was weak even when it was contemporary. You didn't morph a creature because you wanted to. You morphed a creature because it gave you abilities when you unmorphed it. Okay, so the biggest thing here is the Ward 2 part. Because we already did morph. Pretty sure we did morph. Yes, we did. There it is. Okay, so for morph, it says a creature can be cast for 3 mana as a 2/2 small formless humanoid. Since disguise is just morph with extra benefits, we're going to take this directly. However, it also has ward 2. And ward, I don't know if we did. Did we do ward? Or is that just a keyword? No, we did ward. Perfect. So we're just combining these then. So the permanent receives a plus the ward value to its saves versus spells. Planeswalkers can pay the ward value. Okay, maybe not the best wording I've done, but I get it. So, since you have to pay the ward value to attack a creature, that's why Planeswalkers can do it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to copy this as well. It's going to be super easy. Come up here and paste. And so there we go. It receives plus the ward value to saves versus spells, which is good. And planeswalkers can pay the ward value. I should specify, though, it's not can pay. Planeswalkers must pay the ward value to attack the creature or for their creatures to attack. Now, interestingly, do they lose that ward when they flip? It's on 40 cards. So let's see. They've got the Dog Walker here, which again I can't preview. It's got Disguise. When the Dog Walkers turn face up, create 2 untapped 1/1 white dog creature tokens. So I mean that's kind of nice. The creature type is just a human citizen. So just a random person. This is a game that has like angels and demons and goblins and orcs and dinosaurs and unspeakable horrors from beyond that literally destroy things with their very presence. And you're going to play a dog walker. Yeah, that's that's a bold move. Let's see how it pays off. Okay, so sure. It does not appear that it brings ward with it when it is flipped up, so I think we need to add this. For creatures to attack, it loses ward when revealed. Okay. I mean, I'm almost certain. I'm going to take a look at this. So, I was going to cast it face down at any time you have priority. So, anytime as a standard action, you can flip it up. That's the same as with Morph. The face down spell has no mana cost and no mana value 0. When you cast face down, put it on the stack face down so another player knows what it is and pay 3 to cast it. This is an alternative cost. The creature is a 2/2 creature spell with ward 2 that has no name, no cost, and no creature types. Let's see. Does not say anything about it losing, but I'm almost certain it does lose ward when it's turned face up. Okay, good enough for me. All we really did is just combine our previous rules, and there we go. Okay, next up, solved. Like solved should come after plot, not before it. But here we go. It is a special keyword ability that can be found on cases. Cases were introduced in the Murder at Karlov Manor. So at the beginning of your end step, if conditions and this case is not solved, it becomes solved. This sounds a little overly specific. The meaning of solved differs based on what type of ability follows it. So, solved is an activated ability. Means activated ability, activate only if this case is solved. Activated abilities contain a colon. They're generally written as cost and effect. There is also triggered ability. This triggers only when a case is solved. And then okay, the last one is static ability. As long as this case is solved, static abilities are written as statements such as creatures you control get a bonus. Okay, all of these seem to be tied to a case. And case is not in here. There's plot, but not case. So what is a case? So, a case is an enchantment type introduced in Murders of Karloff Manor. They represent mysteries to solve, and thus far all begin their name with Case of the blank. Okay. Here's the thing. If I wanted to give you a mystery to solve, I am capable of giving you a mystery to solve. This would be like somehow manifesting a mystery out of nothing. And I don't know how we do that. So, cases are a variation on sagas and classes that take after the design of quests, but with integrated rules rather than using the quest counters. Cases have 3 abilities listed from top to bottom, and I want to take a look at one. Except they give no examples. They don't show any examples here. Come on. Case cards? No, that just leads me back here. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna say there's really no room for these case cards in the game. I mean, how is it you're supposed to just summon a mystery? That might work on the tabletop where you're not really paying attention to things like continuity, but for a Pathfinder game, that just seems a little bit weird. If you kind of get me. Like with the sagas, at least we can pretend that we're summoning a book. Like a spell book or a scroll, and that reading from the book has magical effects. It's no different than having a magic wand or a magic sword or something else. With this, the only way that I can think to make this work would also be to treat it like a book, a mystery novel, that you're flipping through in the middle of battle and trying to solve. I don't see this really working. And I don't even see any of these case cards for us to really use, or to reference. I could look up here. Case. Should just give me the cases. Case file auditor. Here we go. Case of the Burning Masks. Let's take a look at this one. Case of the Burning Masks. It costs 1+2 red to play. Says, when this case enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to target creature and opponent controls. Okay, so just like that, it's basically a sorcery. To solve, 3 or more sources you controlled deal damage this turn. If it is unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. And if it is solved, sacrifice this case, exile the top 3 cards of your library, choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. It does not say for no mana cost, so you still have to pay for it. Honestly, that doesn't even sound like a mystery. That just sounds like if you manage to perform a certain quest task. And they did say that it was comparable to quests. What else do we have? Case of the Crimson Pulse. When this card enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw 2 cards. To solve this, you must have no cards in your hand. If it is unsolved at the beginning of your end... Okay, so once it is solved, discard your hand and then draw 2 cards. Well, if you have no cards in your hand, there's nothing for you to... Oh, at the beginning of your upkeep, discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. Okay, so that's going to persist then, I assume, because it is an enchantment, across all turns. It's also not going to do you much good because you don't have a hand in the Pathfinder game. So these aren't mysteries as such. They like to treat them like mysteries, but they're just really not. Case of the Filched Falcon. When it enters the battlefield, investigate, that is, create a clue token. It's an artifact with pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. To solve, control 3 or more artifacts. And if it's solved, sacrifice this case, put 4 1/1 counters on a target non-creature artifact. It becomes a 0/0 bird creature with flying in addition to its other types. Okay, so I'm changing my mind here. I don't necessarily have a problem with putting these cases into the game. I don't. I actually kind of like them now. I like what they do. I like how they operate. Let's see. Case of the Gateway Express. When it enters the battlefield, choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals 1 damage to that creature. To solve, 3 or more creatures are have attacked this turn. Okay. And once it is solved, creatures you control get +1/+0. I thought we were done giving non-matching bonuses. Okay. And JP says Red Bull gives you wings card? Technically, yes. If the artifact you chose was a Red Bull, it would get wings. That's very astute of you. I don't know that there's a Red Bull card. So, I mean, if you can find a Red Bull card, it would work. Okay, so yeah. Cases are fine, I just don't like the way they're named. I think they're named poorly. I get what they were going for, but for my purposes, this sucks. So, when we come back to solved, at the beginning of your end step, if condition and this case is not solved, then it becomes solved. Sure, why not? We can just leave this as it is. Every single one of these has a condition on it. We know what it is. And if it's not that clear, this is where a little bit of just human interpretation is going to come in. Where if you don't understand it, that's kind of on you. And that's what the DM is there for, is to interpret and enforce. So if that's solved and that's cases, what is plot? And I know that somewhere out there there's going to be a My Little Pony person who's going to come in and tell me exactly what it is, and like you're getting banned from the chat. Okay, I'm just gonna do that. Okay, plot. It is an alternative cost mechanic introduced in the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We went from Clue to Red Dead Redemption. Okay. The word plot is used in plot and scheme, as in secret cunning, often unscrupulous planning to gain one's ends, to mechanically represent the various plans set forth by the villains and outlaws in the set. This is going to be a lot like Case, isn't it? So, plot. You may pay the cost and exile this card from your hand. You may then cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost. Plot only as a sorcery. Interesting. So it's basically a delayed casting. So the keyword allows you to pay the cost upfront, exile the card from your hand, it then becomes plotted. On a future turn, you may cast a plotted card from exile without paying its mana cost. Both the special action to plot the card and casting from exile are done as a sorcery, meaning that it can only be done during your main phase while the stack is empty. Exiled cards are by default kept face up and may be examined by any player at any time, which for our purposes would involve a spellcraft check. It's not something that gets used very often, but if we come down to skills, And we come down to Spellcraft. So it says right here at the very top, you are skilled in the art of casting spells, identifying magic items, crafting items, and identifying spells as they are being cast. And right here, it says identify a spell as it's being cast is a DC 15 plus the spell level. One of the reasons why this is not used very often... Oh, and you can't see that, it's scrolled up too far. One of the reasons this is not done very often is because most spells, when they're cast, have a duration of instant or a standard action. So if I go to the spell list, and here we go, Sorcerer Wizard spell list. I'm going to pick a simple spell like, oh, just about anything from Evocation, actually. Enchantment, Evocation, here we go. Burning Hands, very, very simple. And JP says, LOL, delayed spell is you've activated my trap card? No, because that would have to be instant. Since this can only be activated on your turn, you could not use it as an instant. Unless there was something that would allow you to do that, and there might be. If there's anything that can shorten that time, it could absolutely be a trap card. And you know what? There might even be some like that. How many cards are there with plot? There's 33 of these things. I'm almost certain that one of them could be a trap card. But anyway, Burning Hands, which is what we're looking at right here. The casting time is one standard action. So keep in mind that on your turn, you generally have what's called a standard action and a move action. Now, I am a little bit more flexible on that. I will often allow simply 2 actions with limitations. For example, I allow 2 actions if somebody wants to, say, use a skill and attack, but I won't allow somebody to, say, attack twice. You can only really do 1 skill at a time. But I will generally allow somebody to say, I would like to make a perception check to look at a particular thing, and I'll usually allow that. Maybe I'll impart a penalty if you're, say, trying to do a perception check while you're in the middle of combat, but otherwise I'm pretty lax about that. Regardless though, 1 standard action is just 1 action on your turn. You literally, because this is verbal and somatic, you say the words, you make the gesture, which might be just pointing your hand, and you cast Burning Hands, shooting a cone of searing flames from your fingertips. There's not really time for you to use your spellcraft to identify a spell. Which is one of the reasons why this really, really often just never gets done. It says down here that identifying a spell as being cast requires no action, so technically you can do it, but you must be able to identify or be able to clearly see the spell being cast, and it incurs the same penalties as a perception skill check due to poor distance, poor conditions, etc. It does not require an action, so you can technically do it at any given time. Unlike, if you were using spellcraft for anything else. This can be done on the fly. But this is happening immediately. There are very, very few things that you can do that are going to help you with this. There is no... Well, I'm not going to say there's no... There are some things that you could do. There are some magics that you could cast as essentially a reaction to shield yourself. But even then, if I were to look at, say, the shield spell, which is under conjuration? No, abjuration. There it is. The shield spell is also 1 standard action, not an immediate action. so it rarely gets used. Now, that being said though, if this is a magic that has been held to the side and is simply waiting to come out, you could absolutely use Spellcraft to identify whatever magic they are holding in reserve. Find out what it is, what it does, etc. And then, because it is being held, you could then you could then maybe counter it. So, what do we have here? Cards that cause cards to be plotted, sure. But I was kind of hoping for an example card. Here we go. Yeah, I still can't preview these, but we got here the Irascible Wolverine. No, not the one in spandex. It's the original Wolverine. It's a 3/2 creature. When it enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Till the end of turn, you may play that card. And it's got plot 2+ red, which is the same as its mana cost. So you can pay to exile the card, and you can bring it back later on whenever you want. Let's see, there's also this, Fibblethip? I don't know how you say that. It has no vowels. How dare you make a name without vowels? Vowels are important. You have to pay for vowels. I know, I saw it on Wheel of Fortune. So, Fibblethip, Lost in the Range. It's a 1/1 homunculus with Ward 2. And it says that you may plot non-land cards from the top of your library. And essentially, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. The top card of your library has plot. The plot cost is equal to its mana cost. There you go. This is another one where I don't think we have to modify much. I describe it as a delay. And when I do that, I say that because there are things like... where's the famous one? Here it is. Delayed Blast Fireball. So this is a much, much higher level fireball than just the regular fireball that everyone loves. And this functions like Fireball, with the exception that it is more powerful, and it can detonate up to 5 rounds after the spell is cast. The Burst of the Flame deals 1d6 points of fire damage per caster level to a maximum of 20d6. The glowing bead created has Delayed Blast Fireball and can detonate immediately if you desire, or you can choose to delay the burst for as many as 5 rounds. You can select the delay upon completing the spell, and that time cannot be changed once it has been cast unless someone touches the bead. If you choose the delay, it sits at its destination until it detonates. A creature can pick up and hurl the bead as a thrown weapon. The range increment is 10 feet. The range increment is 10 feet that you can throw it. However, it detonates in a 30-foot radius. So, it's not even a grenade. This is like throwing a mortar round or something. Okay, if the creature handles and moves the bead within 1 round of its detonation, there's a 25% it just detonates while being handled. So, yeah, we already have spells that delay, and plot is essentially just like that, with the difference that you don't have to put a counter on it. And I see PC Unicorns in the chat and says he's a being that keeps planeswalking uncontrollably. Wait, it's a planeswalker? Well, now I gotta see it. Alright, let's bring it up. Oh my goodness, Open image in a new tab. No, I can't get it. I can't make it so you can see it. How do I... Yeah, fine, I'll move Chrome. Actually, it's not Chrome, it's Firefox, but there it is. Fibblethip lost in the range. Okay, I need you to hear me out on this one. Let's see. I need a new page. So, no, go away. I don't want to do that. I need this one here, and I need... how do you spell it? I think it's there. Aha! There we go. Okay, so, like, I know that there were some people out there who were, like, really into this, and I was not one of those people. But, how many people out there remember something called Monster Rancher? Because this is Fibblethip. What? Go away. Yes, I am an adult. And this is Swazo. Fibblethip. Swazo. Fibblethip. Swazo. I mean, I'm not the one going crazy here, am I? It's the same thing. Except he's got arms and legs. Who knows? I don't know. It's supposed to be like a rip-off of Pokemon or something like that. I don't remember. I think they evolved. Maybe he gets arms and legs later. It's the same thing. Okay, well, now that that's done. Anyway, getting away from the weird, freaky Cyclops. There we go. Okay, so the problem that we have with this one is the exile part. We don't necessarily have rules for exile because exile is just so varied in what exile does. It's kind of a catch-all term. So I have to rewrite that. So we're going to paste this in here. We're going to default format this. And then we'll format it so it's readable. So you may pay X cost, which is fine. And then instead of exiling, I'm just going to say delay this spell's effect. I'm going to go ahead and say cast it as a standard action on a later turn without paying its mana cost. And plot only as a standard action. There. That seems to work a lot better. So you can pay the cost, that's fine. Delay the spell's effect, that's fine. Cast it as a standard action on a later turn? Yes. Without paying its mana cost? Yes. Do this only as a standard action? Yes. Okay, good. I like it. And JP says, looks like the body is a biomech and the eyeball is the pilot. I mean, sorta, kinda, yeah. I cannot argue with that one. Alright, next one. Saddle. Saddle is also introduced in the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It only appears on cards with the Mount Creature type. Okay. So, this was on a whole 31 cards, actually. Saddle N. Tap any number of other creatures you control with total power N or more. This mount becomes saddled until the end of turn. Saddle only the sorcery. This is basically crew. Saddle's an activated ability. It's activated as sorcery. It is similar to the crew ability. It's activated by tapping a number of creatures with power equal or total to the saddle and value. Creatures with saddles, unlike vehicles, can attack and block like a regular creature while unsaddled. Also, unlike vehicles, there's no mechanical connection between the saddle ability and the mount type. If a mount loses its creature type somehow, it still retains its saddle ability. Also, as the saddle ability resolves, the mount becomes saddled until end of turn. As saddling is a sorcery, speed action, all mounts lead towards attacking. Most mounts have an attack trigger that only triggers when saddled. Of those that are not, 2 are saboteur effects, and one of them is an attack trigger that modifies its resolution if saddled. The Stubborn Burrow Fiend is unique in that its saddle effect is functional in the second main phase. So the flavor of saddles the riders now on the mount. The combination makes them better. So do we have an example? There's a Drover Grizzly here. And it's a bear mount. You can't really see the picture. It's a bear, though, with a saddle. So whenever it attacks while saddled, creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, and you only need 1 power to saddle it. Okay. So this is going to be a little bit different, because normally I would just come up to crew, which is right here, and I would just copy this. And actually, that works. So this vehicle needs a strength of X to control. And when we do the actual vehicles, we will have to establish exactly how much strength they need to control them. I see no reason why we can't do the same. But you know what I think we can do? When it comes to saddling, this is only on creatures. This is only on creatures. At least that's what I assume. It's on 31 cards. And if I was to come over here and do an advanced search, I'm looking for rules text. Saddle. I almost put Dassel. I had a dyslexic moment there. We're going to add that, and we're going to do a search. This is actually going to be interesting, because I think we're going to be able to make this different. What is this? Oh, hold on. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, choose up to 1 mount or vehicle you control. Until end of turn, that permanent becomes saddled. If it's a mount, it becomes an artifact creature. If it's a vehicle... Oh, saddled if it's a mount, and becomes an artifact creature if it's a vehicle. Right. Well, we're going to ignore that. The Eclarian Jaguar has saddle The Archmage's Newt has saddle. The Autarch Mammoth has saddle. That's a sorcery. Here's a creature, though. The Bounding Felidar has saddle. I'll take a look at that one. That's a pretty kitty. Okay, here's what I think we're going to do. This is going to be cool. So for the vehicle, we needed strength to control it. And that makes sense for a vehicle. I mean, imagine driving without power steering. I've done it. It's not fun. It's really not fun. You do need strength for that. But for this creature, because it is a creature, it does not need strength. Instead, we're actually going to put a skill in here. And remember, we were just looking at skills. We were looking at spellcraft. But if we look up, there's Handle Animal. So you're trained at working with animals and can teach them tricks, get them to follow your simple commands, or even domesticate them. So handle an animal is usually just 10. And this is to command an animal to perform a task or a trick that it knows. If the animal is wounded or has taken non-lethal damage or ability score damage, it increases by 2. If your check succeeds, they perform the next task or trick on your action. Here's what I think we're gonna do. We're gonna use that. So instead of strength, we're going to say this creature needs a handle animal of 10 plus X to control, where X is going to be the saddle number. So for example, we've got this Bounding Felidar, and whenever it attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. You also gain 1 life for each of those creatures, which is cool. It has saddle too, which means that in order to mount this thing and use it, you would need, or whatever creature happens to be would need, to make a DC 12 handle animal check. That is unique. That is cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, next up then, Spree. What do Spree do? So, it is a keyword ability for instants and sorceries that was introduced in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. It grants them modality. Okay. Still in Thunder Junction. What is modality? Spree, choose 1 or more additional costs. Okay, we've seen this before, I think. Spree is considered a hybrid of the Escalate variant of Fuse. Fuse exists only on split cards and have 2 effects of, so far, always, differing mana costs and can be combined to create a greater effect. For 2-mode Spree spells, this is nearly the same, but the templating gives them an overlapping base cost that makes it cheaper than the sum. However, split cards can only produce 2 effects, like Escalate, it can go up to 3 or more. Though only those with 3 have been printed. This means that the same card can have very cheap and low impact effects, or more expensive high impact effects. When cast, the player must choose 1 or more of these. Okay. Hold on. So we banned the Fuse cards because they were essentially just 2 cards in... They were just 2 cards in one spell, and that did not jive with me correctly. However, when we look at this, so this is Explosive Derailment. It costs 1 to play, and then it has Spree. You can choose more effects. So if you pay +2 more, it can deal 4 damage to target creature. If you pay +2, it destroys target artifact. I'm conflicted on this one. Because again, we have a card that can do more than one effect for having one slot. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because this is essentially just the same thing. We already have cards that can do 4 damage to a target creature. I have cards that can do 4 damage to a target creature. I have cards that can do, or that can destroy a target artifact. That's not uncommon. What we have here is both of them combined into one. And I feel like that's not fair. I feel like it's not fair. Because you could load up your deck with a whole bunch of these. And I mean, how many of these are there? How many of these are there? There's 21 of these. If we refer back to our Planeswalker, your spells known, by the time you hit level 20, you would have 40 spells known, meaning that half of your deck could be this, which would give you a total of a minimum of 40 effects for the price of 20 spells. This violates the spirit of the rules, if not the actual letter of them. And so, as much as this is better than Fuse, I don't think I'm going to allow it. And PC Unicorn says, I find it interesting. You like the mechanics from 2 failed sets, Plot from the Murders and Saddle from the Outlaws. One night at the game store for casual, they gave away 2 boxes of Murders because no one wanted them. Okay, speaking to the not the Plot from Murders. Well, I mean, kind of the Plot from Murder. I was more impressed with, like, the cases, actually. I was more impressed with the cases. For the plot, where was that? Here it is. Yeah, you may pay the spells. It was the case one that I didn't like at first. And with the cases, I stand by what I said. I hate the way that the case is phrased. I understand why. But when you say that that the murders at Karlov Manor were not popular and no one wanted them, yeah, I believe that. See, here's the thing. And I would not be surprised if somebody told me that the murders at Karlov Manor was actually one of the what's the word? The franchise sets. Because Murders at Karlov Manor doesn't fit. You have all of this poorly organized, I will admit that, lore in Magic the Gathering. You have the creation of the multiverse. You have the spark that's in all the planeswalkers that allows them to walk between planes. And they do abuse this by saying that because there is a multiverse, it means that everything is fair game. You can walk from Ravnica to the Federation on Earth, to Ixalan, to Cadia in 40k, to whatever the place is that Niv Mizzet lives in, I forget. The Izzet Guild. You could walk straight from Cadia in 40k to the Izzet Guild. These things are technically possible in Magic the Gathering because of the way that things are organized. But because of that, there are things that are just kind of contradictory. Because you have all of these different planes where we have kind of an established set of rules. You do have things like angels and demons, okay? You have angels, demons, elves, orcs, dwarves, goblins, gnomes, all of these things. We have pretty well established that we are operating in a fantasy setting. And then we do have some things like technology. But when we say technology, what are we looking at? We are looking at things like golems. No, not the one with the ring. The big stone ones. Or in some cases, they're made out of, like, thaumaturgical magic. They're made out of steam or clockwork or any of these things that are not digital. They're not contemporary in any way. We even have things like vehicles, and we even have some things that are like flying vehicles because we have things like ornithopters, which fits right in there with the fantasy genre. But then you come across something like the Murders at Karlov Manor. And if I had to place the time period of Murders at Karlov Manor, it would be Victorian at the earliest. Possibly even more contemporary than that. I mean, we are talking about the height of the industrial age, where we are just beginning to do things like mass manufacturing, assembly lines, stuff like that. We are building giant sea liners. We're building giant tanks and things. This is, essentially the World War I period. We're just starting to make planes. Unless I miss my history appropriately, and I could be, so feel free to fact check me on this one. The Victorian era was when the Wright brothers took their first flight. And after the Wright brothers took their first flight, we had biplanes in like 30 years, I think? And we were literally using them for war. The first biplanes used for war literally just carried satchels of grenades, and the pilots were given pistols that they could shoot at other pilots, or in the case that they were going down because we didn't necessarily have parachutes yet, they could shoot themselves. Eventually, we started strapping fully automatic machine guns on biplanes, and we turned them into actual weapons of war, okay? This is all in what is essentially the Victorian period and the following era. Murders of Karlov has like no place in any of Magic the Gathering. And I would say the same thing for this Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This is the Wild West. Now, I will bend on one thing. There's a meme out there, and I can't find it right now, but somebody pointed out, because you can do this kind of thing in Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, stuff like that, that in the world, what was it? Cowboys, samurai, musketeers, and something else. Oh, pirates, I believe. I believe it was cowboys, samurai, musketeers, and pirates. All existed in the same time period. Meaning that you could absolutely have an adventuring party of a samurai and a cowboy and a pirate and maybe it wasn't a musketeer, it was a privateer. I don't know. I'm not sure. But either way, all of these things existed at the same time period, which is kind of like mind-boggling for some people, myself included when I first thought about it, but it was true. But it still doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the whole fantasy genre thing. That's not to say that you couldn't do it. That's not to say it could not be fun. I think it would be absolutely tons of fun. And if I had the opportunity, I would absolutely run that game. But regardless, it's weird. It's weird, and it does kind of break the immersion. For the tabletop game, who cares? No one really thinks about immersion, you're worried about winning the game. For a Pathfinder game, for tabletop role-playing, it is one of those things that we have to keep in mind. We are trying to create a narrative, a world here, and everything in that world needs to kind of make sense. Yes, even when we have planeswalkers who are capable of simply leaving one reality and entering another, things still need to make sense. We need to have concrete rules, and we need to have consistency where we can. Yes, we are fully capable of bending the rules, but we should bend them as little as possible. That is the primary difference between what we saw in like older movies, and when I say older movies, I mean like the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and what we see now. Especially when you look at like Marvel and Star Wars and pretty much everything that Disney is doing. People are pissed at Disney for what they have done with all of their IPs. And the reason why is primarily because you are allowed to bend the rules a little bit. You are allowed to bend just about everything a little bit. Disney went way too far to the point where the rules snapped and no longer mattered. That's why people are upset at them, that's why they're bad at what they're doing, and that's what separates a bad writer from a good writer. Good writers acknowledge that the rules are there, acknowledge that you can bend them a little bit, but you still need to be constrained by them. And in those constraints, that's where you find creativity. As they say, necessity is the mother of all invention. And so when you find yourself constrained by the rules that says, I really, really need this outcome, but these things are standing in my way, that's when you need to get creative and find a way around them. Instead of simply inventing a new tool or spell or ability on the fly that magically just solves whatever problem you have. Consistency. It's a necessity in writing. And things like this, the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, this is not consistent. Same thing with the Murders at Karlov Manor. And JP says the Wright brothers' flight was in 1903, which means that my timetable was grossly overextended. The Wright brothers' flight was in 1903. We were using biplanes in war 10 years later. $10 from the first manned flight. And by the way, if you've seen the Wright brothers plane, which was the Kitty Hawk, I think, if I remember correctly. If you've seen that plane, the first manned flight, and I use air quotes there heavily, it was manned because he was holding on for dear life. There was no seat. All it was an engine and 2 sets of wings, and he literally laid on the wings, strapped in, on the wing, as it took off from the beach, flew a little while, and then set back down. Technically, he did have some controls that let him guide it a little bit, but when they say manned flight, they're using that term very loosely. It took 10 years from strapping a man to a wing and a motor to dropping bombs over no man's land in Germany. And that's essentially the same era that the Murders at Karlov Manor are taking place in. It had no place. PC Unicorn says they're following the pirate code. More of guidelines, really. Yeah, they are doing that. Except I'm not sure if we can call them guidelines. Okay, so back to this. The thing about Spree is that while I do understand what they're doing here, I can't abide this. Because just this card alone is giving you a destroy artifact and a damage creature. I understand the fact that they want you to kind of combine both of them to do both at once. But I can't do this. It would be essentially like me going to the wizard spell list and coming back up here to level 1 evocations. So level 1 evocations, and saying under evocation we've got Burning Hands, which we just looked at. Okay, we just looked at Burning Hands. There's also pick something here. Hydraulic Push. Okay, Hydraulic Push. It's a wave of water that bull rushes an enemy. Literally. Or no, wait, that's a bad example. How about this? Burning Hands and Flare Burst. So, Flare Burst. It does the same thing as Flare, which just dazes a creature. But it affects all creatures in a 10-foot radius. It would be like combining a spell and saying, you can do 1d4 fire damage to a max of 5d4. Or you can do Flare Burst and... Actually, I think this blinds people. You can blind all creatures within 10 feet, or you could do both of them at once. Doing both of these at once would push this Flare Hands or Burning Burst or whatever you want to call it to a 3rd level spell easily. It would be completely unbalanced down here. So, for the sake of balance, this effect is banned. It's the only way to do it. And JP says, aviation timeline is incredible. 67 years from Kitty Hawk to the moon landing. Yeah. Yes, it is. It is absolutely wild. What we have done. But then again, that doesn't just apply to aviation. I forget what it looks like, but some people have tracked technological progression, and humanity spent more or less, let's see, I think recorded history goes back about 6,000 years. Somebody could fact check me on that one. But the oldest records that we've found were tablets from Sumeria, I believe, and they date back to, I think, somewhere in the roughly 5000 BC area. Give or take. Going off of that, we spent about 6,000 years, again, give or take decades, maybe give or take centuries, as a primarily agrarian society, because we couldn't have written records while we were still nomadic. So we have no records of hunter-gatherer societies. 6,000 years of agrarian society that we know of. And then, once you get to about the turn of the 20th century, when we finally discover how to harness the steam engine, technology just explodes. I mean, it goes absolutely off the chain. We had steam engines before then. Yes, we did. We had steam trains and stuff, but it wasn't until we figured out we could take a steam engine, put it into a factory, make a machine that can mass produce an immense number of the same things all at once. Mass production. That we begin to see technology just go off like a rocket. The graph of human invention and development basically goes in the span of about 50 years from being a straight horizontal line to a straight vertical line. And by the way, even though that line is not currently yet vertical, as soon as we perfect artificial intelligence, the minute that we create an actual true AGI, that is an artificial general intelligence, that is a human equivalent intelligence, that line is going to go so vertical, it is going to be straining on bending backwards. And I mean, if there is such a thing as time travel, if it is ever possible, artificial intelligence will be the way to get there. All physics says that it's not possible. But I will guarantee that artificial general intelligence will be our first step to finding new physics. And I firmly believe that there are new physics that we do not currently understand. And I've said it before, everyone thinks that the speed of light is the pinnacle of the universe. And I've explained this to other people and said, yes, the speed of light is the fastest thing in the universe that we know of. Because every single telescope that we have depends on light. And they say, no, we have X-ray telescopes. And it's like, yes, what do you think X-rays are? X-rays are light. They are high energy light. The only difference between an infrared photon, a visible photon, an X-ray photon, and a gamma ray photon is the frequency of the photon and the amount of energy it's carrying. Every telescope we have runs on photons. Obviously, we can't detect anything that is faster than a photon. I will guarantee the minute that we find a way to detect things without necessarily using photons, we will find new physics. My personal belief, I think we're going to find tachyons. But hey, that's just because I like Star Trek. Let's see. PC Unicorn says, think of the internet timeline or the computer timeline in general. Energy is the driver for all innovation. Yes, it is. Energy is the basis for everything. Your entire ecosystem is based upon the energy that you can bring in. I've said it before, if you've got a closed ecosystem, the amount of sunlight that you get gives you grass. That amount of grass can sustain X number of bunnies, and that number of bunnies can sustain X number of foxes. If you change the amount of area of the pen, and thus the amount of energy, solar energy you can collect, that will change the number of bunnies, which will in turn change the number of foxes. And if you shrink or grow the pasture that you have, it changes the number of everything else. Energy is everything. PC Unicorn also says that yes, the line would be vertical, but it could also go straight down. But genie's out of the bottle, so just have to try and control it. This is not related to Magic the Gathering at all, obviously. I have every faith in artificial intelligence. I have zero faith in humanity. I believe firmly that an artificial general intelligence will be just fine. My problem is that people are going to tell it what to do, and that it is going to do exactly what they want. I mean, for all the people out there that, think that artificial intelligence is going to be the worst thing out there, what is the name of that guy? You would probably never know his name, and I can't think of his name either, but there is a guy who created he spent his entire life creating new strains of crops. He is incredibly famous because I believe he made a new strain of low water wheat that he exported to Africa, because Africa is an arid climate, and because this strain of wheat thrives in a more arid environment, he was able to help them produce more food than the African continent has ever seen before, and it has helped them grow their populations like never before. He's done the same thing, and I cannot remember his name, and I feel bad for forgetting what his name is. Anyway, give that guy an artificial general intelligence. He would find a way to solve the food crisis in the world forever. We would have so much food coming out of the ground, out of the water, out of the air, that we would be drowning in it. Alternately, give an AGI to any one of the multiple terrorist groups out in the middle of the Middle East, and they would find a way to wipe out pretty much 99% of all life on Earth. So the matter of we just have to try and control it is going to depend really heavily on who is going to control it. Somebody is going to. Okay, JP had to run. Thank you, JP, for coming in. It was good to see you. But JP also said before he left, I think that human flight was the first modern impossibility conquered. Maybe it was a kickoff for the modern tech explosion. Maybe that goes to the first computer. It's hard to say. Every single advancement. I think when you're talking about the first impossibility conquered, you have to look at the first machine. So, the first time that we could conquer an animal and get the animal to do work for us, that was probably where everything began to turn up. When we conquered the first plant and we decided that we don't have to, hunt and gather for these things, we can simply bring the seeds back and start, farming it. That was when everything changed. But if you're talking about when things really started to kick off, I think the first steam engine is what really did it. When we said we can take this metal, this raw metal, and we can fabricate it into something that we can make work for us. And it can work without human input. All you have to do is pull this lever and the machine will work. I think that is when everything changed. Because then it's just a matter of how many machines can you run at once? How many different things can you make at once? Can you put them all together? Mass production is what I think really did it. PC Unicorn says, I would say it was the printing press. Fair point. And the printing press is acknowledged as being one of the pinnacle turning points in human history. However, even the printing press still required humans. Now, granted, the impact of the printing press could not be more influential. The printing press changed things forever. But even the printing press was further improved when they could automate it. When the hand printing press became the steam printing press. I mean, with a printing press, one person could print or could, create 100 copies of a book in maybe a day. Small book, very small book, like 4-page book. No big deal. However, once you can produce 4,000, 40,000, 400,000 in a day through an industrial printing press, it's kind of hard to compete with that. But that does not negate the fact that, the printing press was hugely influential. And again, that's the kind of thing that, I would not want to see in here. I don't want to see all of these industrial things in Magic the Gathering. They don't belong here. It's the same thing with all of the franchise sets. They just don't belong. Which is why people are getting so pissed off that Wizards of the Coast wants to do nothing. I think they said they want to do nothing but the franchise sets for 2025 or something. It's scraping the barrel instead of getting a better barrel. Okay, we only have a few more of these left though, so why don't we go ahead and wrap these up quickly if we can. Next up is free running. And free running is a keyword ability that offers an alternative cost. It appears on only appears on some assassin creature cards, and was introduced in the Universes Beyond Assassin's Creed. In fact, it was introduced in Assassin's Creed and only used in Assassin's Creed. You know what that means? Skipped. It is not applicable because we are not using Assassin's Creed. So what's the next one? Gift. Gift is a keyword ability introduced in Bloomborough. It represents an additional cost. Okay. So this is an actual set. I know because I have one of these. Reminder text. So gift. You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast the spell. If you do, they get whatever you're gifting them. Okay, I'm familiar with Canadian history. This seems like a bad idea. Okay, as the additional cost, you can promise them a gift. You cast a spell with the mechanic. This is optional, and if you have more than one opponent, you can choose one and only one of them at most. They don't receive the gift yet. Each card with a gift has an additional or alternative effect if the gift was or wasn't promised. So, as you cast permanent spell with a gift, you can promise a gift to an opponent if you want. When the permanent enters, they receive a gift. As you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can promise a gift to an opponent if you want. Then the spell's other effects happen. Note that if the spell has targets, those targets are chosen long before any gifts are given, so those gifts, should they happen to be newly created tokens, cannot be targeted by those targets. Good to know. However, the tokens will be on the battlefield for any of the other untargeted effects. So, types of gifts. There's draw a card, a tapped 1/1 blue fish creature token. That's weird. A food token. It's an artifact which is pay 2, tap, sacrifice an artifact, you gain 3 life. A treasure. So treasure tokens are tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. Okay, good. Take an extra turn. Wow, that's... I'm not sure that I want to gift my opponent an extra turn. An octopus. Create an 8/8 blue octopus creature. Oh, I love it. An 8/8 blue octopus. That's funny. Or a Rhystic Study. Conjure a card named Rhystic Study into the battlefield. That seems awfully specific. Quite frankly, honestly, the extra turn, that kind of works. Because everything in Pathfinder is done in turns. Let's see. So, examples. There's Kidnap here, and I still don't have any previews, so... It's an enchantment aura. You may gift a card. And it's enchant creature. When Kidnap enters, tap the enchantment creature. If the gift wasn't promised, put 3 stun counters on it when you control an enchanted creature. Now, this is something that was, or will actually be very important. So, I see no reason not to allow this in. I have no problem with it. You will probably need to have, well, no, you don't need this wiki yet because it'll be on your card. But when it says, like, gift a card, we can't draw cards. Unless we're going to say that, you know, allowing your opponent to draw a card is giving them back a spell per day, which I don't see that happening because when you draw a card, you're taking away from your library's total. So you're running out of spells per day. So drawing a card, not really... something that we can do, meaning that if you were to put this Kidnap into your deck, there would be no way for you to give the gift. And as such, you would be forced to take the 3 stun counters every time you played it. So, yeah, that's not going to work. However, this one, Parting Gust, it's an instant. Exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a 1/1 counter on it at the beginning of the next step. Okay, however, you can promise a fish. Gift a tapped fish. It is a 1/1 blue fish creature token. I see no reason why this wouldn't work. It already tells you what it is. It is a 1/1 blue fish. So literally, as you're playing this instant, Parting Gust, you get to blow away one of their creatures, and in its place, you will leave a fish. And because this is Pathfinder, and we do operate under some rules of realism here, it will be a 1/1 blue fish creature token, literally out of water, flopping on the ground. We have rules for that. So this would actually be even more detrimental than it would be in the game. And PC Unicorn says, gift a card, gift a spell per day? No. The reason for that is because when you draw a card, you are taking away from your deck. So you have a 40, 60, whatever card deck, and every time you draw a card, that number goes down. If that number is 0 and you draw another card, you lose. Which means that this is very, very important. Those spells per day are incredibly important that we keep a monitor on them. Now, in Pathfinder, if you run out of spells, you simply cannot play any more spells, and thus, congratulations, you're on your own. So, good luck. I hope you've got something in reserve. But since we have to make these things kind of equal, that means that every single spell that comes or that is cast somehow would come out of your deck, your spells per day, and so would drawing a card. So that spell per day would have to come into your hand somehow, but we don't have a hand. You are freely able to cast any spell. Like, imagine playing like Commander, except with the exception of no land. Okay, there's no land in your deck, so that automatically cuts your deck size down to about 50. Well, okay, maybe not 50, but it will cut your deck size down to maybe about 60 or so. And now you have a 60 card hand. So you can pick and choose any card of those 60 that you're currently holding and play them. Which, quite frankly, could be a very interesting game to play. Because now there's literally nothing stopping you from getting out that perfect combo that you want every single time. The only problem is, the same thing is true for your opponent. And that would be true in Pathfinder as well. You have access to all of your spells at all times. Which means that there is no hand, there is no need to draw, and draw would essentially just be removing one spell per day for no benefit. In order for us to grant another spell per day, we would need to cycle spells or old cards back into our library. So what we'd be looking at is essentially any of those cards that say retrieve a card from your library and shuffle it back into your deck. And I know that there's more than a few of them. I can't think of one off the top of my head, to be honest. I know there's a lot that can put it back into your hand. Like, I've got the Gravedigger that does that. But I don't think that I have any that actually put stuff back into your library. So, any of those would be putting spells, or would be giving you back your spells per day. So you've got the card that says, you know, take target creature out of your graveyard and shuffle it back into your deck. You play that spell, and congratulations, it's now back in your library. So that will regenerate your spells per day. That is pretty much the only way I can think of at this moment, though, to get those back. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be creatures. It could be any card. As long as it goes back in your library, it goes back into your spells per day. But drawing cards, it's just, it doesn't have anything. There's nothing it does for us. So, I think that we can just copy this because the rules on the card are pretty straightforward. I mean, it literally says gift and whatever it is that you're gifting them. This Valley Rally says gift of food. And as long as you know what the things are, they're kind of fine. And if you don't know what they are, well, that's what wikis are for. Okay, so you may promise an opponent a gift as you cast the spell. If you do, they get whatever it is you're gifting them. Very simple, very straightforward. Nothing more we need to do. So the next one is Offspring. Offspring also comes from Bloomborough. It also represents the familial nature of the set's characters. Okay, so Offspring cost. You may pay an additional cost as you cast the spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. That could be interesting. Okay, so when you cast Creature with Offspring, you pay that, it enters. If the cost was paid with a 1/1 token, that is a copy. It has the same name, same creature type, same mana cost, same value, and abilities of its parent. The only differences are power and toughness. Like with the Embalm mechanic from Amonkhet, each card with Offspring has its own dedicated token depicting its junior version. R&D wanted the creatures with Offspring to have abilities that were relevant to a 1/1 body, but not usually as potent. The most fruitful design space was triggers, especially enters triggers and attack triggers. This made the larger body better for combat while keeping the junior versions relevant. So why don't we take a look at an example. The Thunder Trap Tamer, right here. It's an otter wizard, and otters are adorable. So it has Offspring 4. If you pay an additional 4, this creature enters with a 1/1 token copy of it. Now, interestingly, I would say we could make them one size smaller. So the otter wizard here is a 1/2. So total of 3. Which means it's already going to be a small creature. We could say that whenever an Offspring comes in, it would be even smaller, making it tiny. But maybe we don't need to do that. That would just be flavoring anyway, really. So when this creature enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land from a card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Again, this is one of those things that's not going to help us much because, like, you don't have a library to reveal. And you don't have a hand to put it in the first place. So for this Thunder Trap Trainer, there's not really a lot of benefits for you taking this unless you just really love otters. So, okay. I don't see much of a need to change a lot of things. PC Unicorn says, lore-wise, it's the child of, so scale it that way. Yeah, that's why I was saying, make it tiny. But I don't see much need for that. And besides that, I mean, do we really want to have children on the battlefield? You are trying to kill these things, and they are trying to kill you. So, do we really want to do this? I'm a little bit reminded of RimWorld, where in RimWorld, when the game first came out, every single character that started was an adult. So they always had a childhood and an adulthood backstory and everything else. And a lot of people ask, it's like, well, you know, this is cool and all, but like, we already have colonists who have sex because, you know, getting some loving is a huge mood boost. Why don't we have children? I mean, why can't we have pregnancy and children? And the creator of RimWorld came out and said, I don't want to have children in RimWorld. Do you know how awful RimWorld is? Do you really want to have children there? And that remained true for a long time. That remained true through the Royalty DLC. That remained true through the Ideology DLC. It wasn't until the Biotech DLC came out that the creator finally relented and said, okay, you want children in RimWorld. You have already made mods that put children in RimWorld. Okay, I will add children to RimWorld. And the number of war crimes went up exponentially. So, I mean, do we really want to have this in Pathfinder? I don't think so. We'll just have it be a smaller version of the one that we're doing, even though it says offspring, and I know that means child. We're going to kind of hand wave that and ignore that part. Okay, so, let's see. We have, oh, these are offspring tokens. That's why they're all 1/1s. Bunny! Aw, you can't see it, but it's a cute bunny. It is a token, however, so I guess if you were going to play, you would really need a lot of these tokens. Okay. I don't see a need to really change anything here, though. It says you may pay an additional cost as you play the spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. I think we can kind of keep things the way it is, honestly. Yeah, we're gonna do this. So we're gonna just paste this in. We're going to default format this. And then we're going to format paint it so it's readable. So you may pay an additional cost as you cast the spell. If you do, when this creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. Now, the thing about the 1/1 is that it is a +1/+1 strength and constitution bonus. In this case, it's going to end up being an 11 strength, 11 constitution copy. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually change it to that. So 11 strength and 11 constitution token copy. That way, we don't get things too confused. Okay, and the last one. And I know we're over time now, but who cares? It's the last one. Impending. So, impending is the keyword ability introduced in Duskmourn House of Horror. It conveys a feeling of knowing doom is coming. So, it was introduced in the Duskmourn House of Horror, last used in Duskmourn, obviously. It's on a whole 6 cards. And it's got impending end. So if you cast the spell for its impending cost, it enters with N time counters and isn't a creature until the last is removed. At the beginning of your end step, remove a time counter from it. This feels very similar. This is essentially the same thing as plot, kinda. Except that this isn't necessarily an exile, it's on the field. However, it says that it is not a creature. If it's not a creature, then it's just a spell. It says it functions similar to Suspend. It offers an alternative cost. If you choose to cast a spell for its impending cost, it enters with the counters. I'm going to go ahead and assume that the suspend cost is going to be cheaper. So here we go. We've got the Overlord of the Hauntwoods. It's a green creature. It costs 3 plus 2 green to play, but you can play it for impending 4. That's 1 plus 2 green. So yeah, it's cheaper. Whenever it enters or attacks, it creates a tapped colorless land token named everywhere that is a basic, or every basic land type. That's kind of cool. Okay, so it's similar to Suspend. And we already did Suspend. Here it is. So this spell comes into effect after a number of turns equal to the Suspend count. Perfect. That's all we really need. In the case of this one, it says, if you cast a spell for its impending cost, it enters with time counters and isn't a creature until the last one is removed. At the beginning of your end step, just remove a time counter from it. That's essentially the same thing. So this spell comes into play after a number of turns equal to the, hold on, impending count. And until then, it could be counterspelled like anything else. Either if your opponent literally has a counterspell, or, I mean, that actually is kind of the only way it could be done. I don't think a wizard should be able to counter Planeswalker's spells since they kind of, sort of use different manas. So this should be fine. Can it be countered while it's kind of in suspension like that? It says it has multiple abilities. Yes, yes, yes. If you choose to pay the impending cost rather than mana cost, you're still casting the spell. It goes in the stack and can be responded to, countered, and so on. If you choose to pay the impending cost of the creature spell, it's still a creature spell on the stack. You can cast the spell for its impending cost, only if you could normally cast a creature spell. Most of the time, this means during your main phase when the stack is empty. If an object enters as a copy of a permanent that was cast with the impending cost, it won't enter with the time counters, and it will still be a creature. Okay. So it's treated like any other spell, which means that once it's there, it's there. You can't just, counter it, but you could, technically, I think, unsummon it. I think. It is still a creature spell? No, it says it isn't a creature until the last counter is removed. So you would have to counter it as a spell as it's being cast, otherwise wait until it is a creature and then unsummon it. Still though, I do like it because it means that this card in particular, technically speaking, you could pick this card up this spell up at level 3 and be able to play it with impending 4. Then, 2 levels later, when you finally reach level 5, you would be able to simply summon it and have it immediately act. Again, it's going to be a delayed gratification kind of thing where you're going to take it now, but you're really going to appreciate it later. And that's the kind of playstyle that I would really encourage. But okay. Very simple, actually. I like it. It works. I think it's going to have a great effect. And so what do we have next? Oh, that's right. Nothing. We have nothing left. Because we reached the bottom. We reached the end. We did it! Technically, there's still a few others, but you know what? I think I'm just going to go ahead and I'll take care of those myself later. We did it. Almost all 176 keyword abilities. That's assuming they haven't added more. Did they add more? No, they didn't. Not yet anyway. So, even on here, on this wiki, that's it. I'm going to refresh it. Nope, nothing new. Fantastic. Whew boy. That was a lot. That was an awful lot. I feel accomplished. Do you feel accomplished? We made it. So, with that done, we now know what every single one of these creatures is going to do. The only problem we have now is, what creatures? Because we don't have any yet. We have spells. We know what all of our spells do. We know how we're going to do the damage dice. We know how to do durations and such. We don't know how long creatures are going to last once they are summoned. And so that may be a bit of an issue. But again, the creature module is where we're going to work those things out. So next time, I think we're finally going to move into creatures. We're going to move into how they're summoned, how long they last, what form they take, and then, oh boy, then is where things are going to get really nasty, honestly. Because, and this is going to be, I'm not looking forward to this. We already know that for creatures, the power and toughness are going to be their strength and their constitution, which is going to give them their ability scores there. However, that is still going to leave their dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma that need to be filled in if we're going to make a proper character. Because every single one of these is going to need to have some kind of mini sheet that you can refer to when you summon them. That means that the dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are going to be covered under what type of creature it is. And that's where we're going to have to make another list, because that's going to be a very, very long list as well. Just looking at the list of creature types here, we have, and I'm just going to go through some of these real quick. Advisors, dwarves, masticores, scions, aetherborn, ifrits, mercenaries, scorpions, aliens, eggs, merfolk, scouts, allies, elders, metathrans, sculptures, angels, eldrazi, minions, serfs. The list goes on and on. Each one of those is going to have its own bonuses so that we can combine the power, toughness, and creature type to make a full stat block. Some of that is going to be easier than others because, for example, human is a creature type, as it should be. And that's fine. However, there are also things like wizard, which is also kind of sort of a creature type. And so if it's a human wizard, what does that do? I don't know yet. And so we're going to have to figure out, it may not be static abilities, it may simply end up being that all of these will be skill or ability score bonuses, meaning that bonuses may be able to stack, and that will help give us our creatures. So instead of a human being simply like a 12 in dexterity, they'll simply be a +2 dexterity, meaning that a human wizard, which is a 2/2, would have a 12 strength. The human getting a +2 to dexterity would give it a 12 dexterity. A wizard getting a +2 to intelligence means that it would get a +2 constitution from his toughness, +2 intelligence from wizard, and it would build from there. That's the best way I can think of it, but we'll have to work on that next time. And the Mr. Flosh, whom I have never seen before, but hello, welcome to the stream. The stream is almost over though, so I'm sorry about that. The Mr. Flosh says, there are cards that bounce, destroy, exile permanents. Those would work on a creature that is still impending. Good to know. It is still a permanent, even if it's not a creature. And so anything that would, air quotes, unsummon, I guess, a creature, or bounce it as you put it, yeah, that would still work. And that's a good point. So it's not untouchable. It says that it's not a creature, but if there's anything that just simply has a destroy effect on it. Except I don't know if there's a general destroy target card out there. Most of them are either destroy creature or destroy artifact or destroy land. Either way, there are counters for it. It could be done. And so, again, very good point. But okay, we have a lot to look forward to next time. I figure creatures will go faster, even though there is a long list of all the creatures that need to be gone through. But again, they're going to be really, really quick because we don't need to write long rules. We just need to give them attributes. And maybe something special, but probably not because the cards themselves will have the special abilities on them. So we just need those hard numbers. And then we need to develop some kind of mini character sheet for them. Either way, I think it's going to be fun. I think we're going to enjoy it. It'll be interesting seeing every single creature type that's in the game. There are a lot of them, but I'm curious to see what they are. And of course, obviously, things like I just saw Inquisitor. Yeah, that's out. Because there's no Inquisitors, there's no Primarchs, we're not doing any of the franchise stuff. So we'll be able to knock out a few of them. Anyway, though, that'll be for next time. For today, we're done, so thank you everybody who came out here for this one. It was good to see all of you, including you, the Mr. Flosh. I hope I'll see you next week, same time. Otherwise, if you like this, or if you want to see more of this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified. If you like what I'm, or if you know somebody else, if you know someone else who also enjoys either tabletop gaming like Pathfinder, or they're a Magic the Gathering player, share this video with them, because I'd love to get them involved. Y'all know more about Magic the Gathering than I do. I only really know it from like a lore perspective. You all know the rules, and so you help me. So I hope that you'll share it with other people so they can help me too, because I need the help. Otherwise though, if you like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video. If you want to leave a comment down below, you can do that too. However, I'd really appreciate it if instead of leaving a comment down below, you would join the Discord, especially if you would like to play with us, because this is a game, and I do need players if we're going to play it. So, join the Discord, go to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what games you're interested in, what your availability is, and as soon as I have enough people, I will get a game going. I've already got one game going. It's overwhelming, but I could use to be more overwhelmed. So come on, torment me, torture me, give me more players. That's what I want. It's not my birthday anymore, but you know what? Christmas is coming. Give me more players for my Christmas. Technically, that gives you like 9 months to do it, but you know what? It may take 9 months. So, do that, and hopefully I will see you there. If I don't see you in the Discord, I hope that I will see you next Sunday for the Tabletop stream. And until then, do me a favor, take care.